Louis, who loved the light. There used to be a time, not long ago, with no cars and no electric bulbs. And back then, in a tiny French village, there lived a boy named Louis. It was clear from the moment he was a small child that he would be a very curious boy. However, he liked different things than other children his age. While they played, climbed trees and ran around outside in nice weather, Louis watched the flames of the kerosene lamps, his eyes wide with astonishment as they created shadow animals on the wall. While his friends were ice skating across the frozen river outside of the city in the winter, Louis learned to write and draw with feather quills dipped in ink. And one day, when a nomadic theatre visited the city, the painted scenery backdrops attracted Louis much more than the actors or story itself. Right after the performance, he rushed home, took some old pieces of cloth from the shed, and tried to paint something similar on them. In the evenings, hidden in a corner so that no one could see him, he rehearsed puppet shows with his own designs. When Louis grew up, he didn't even have to think about what he wanted to do for a living. He said goodbye to his parents and went directly to Paris, where he trained as a scenic background painter. It wasn't long before his teacher noticed how talented Louis was. As soon as the young man had learned the basics of the craft, he began to accompany the master as his assistant in theatrical performances. Louis was a fast learner, and what fascinated him most was light, especially how he could play with it. He was able to make a deep night or a bright day on stage. He could create his scenery so that the spectators' eyes couldn't believe it was just a painted background. "You are the Lord of Light, Louis," people would say, amazed with his work. "Light obeys you." And Louis would just smile. News of his skill and imagination soon spread throughout the city. His work was in high demand, and Louis's name soon became known throughout Paris. He was busy all of the time. When he wasn't working in the theatre, he painted. Every person of importance wanted to have their portrait painted by Louis. One night, as Louis went to bed after a difficult day painting, he thought, half awake, what if there was an easy way to capture a moment? What if I really could master the light? Louis couldn't stop thinking about it. Whenever he had free time, he locked himself in his modest lab and thought and studied. He was sure there was another way to capture a moment beyond painting. If he could just capture the light, and in an instant, not like the painting of a portrait that could take weeks. And so Louis spent all his free time in the studio, where he studied, researched, and tested. There were no results for a long time. However, he didn't give up so easily. One evening, in the silence of a dark street, someone cried out joyfully. After years of experimenting with light, materials, and chemicals, an image started to show up on a silver plate. Louis repeated the experiment a few times more to be sure he wasn't mistaken. Each time, however, a new picture of what was right in front of him appeared on the plate. "I have tamed the light," he shouted in excitement. "I have caught the flight of light." And this is how the grandfather of modern photography was born. It got its name after Louis' surname, daguerreotype. His invention was revolutionary. Family portraits were no longer only for nobles and wealthy burghers. Thanks to Louis, anyone could be immortalized. All they had to do was pose for a short time in a studio. There were long lines of people interested in daguerreotypes that waited their turn. From then on, everyone could own a picture of their loved ones. Everyone could admire how the light captured the reality of the image. Louis had almost no time left for the painting he loved so much. Instead, he introduced other people to the secrets of his new art with great enthusiasm. News of the revolutionary technology flew across the French border, and Louis immediately became famous around the world. With his imagination and dedication, he became one of the world's greatest and most respected inventors of his time. One day, you may go on a trip to Paris, and you may come across the picturesque, lively Rue Daguerre as you walk. It's the street named after him. Remember Louis there. Remember the boy who was in love with light and managed to capture its flight. This story is based on the true story of a man named Louis-Jacques Monde Daguerre, who invented the daguerreotype, the forerunner of modern photography, in the first half of the 19th century.